Hi there and welcome to this edition of Startup Central. I'm Rachana Ranade. This is the only show of its kind on Indian television dedicated, of course, to startups. As the name suggests, we talk about entrepreneurship, disruption, basically anything to do with the new economy is going to be here on ET Now every weekday at 6 p.m. Like all the stakeholders of the community that we get on the show, the team that puts the show together thrives on constructive criticism. Yes, we lap up on praises, but what we really want is constructive criticism to take the show to the next level. Our email address right on top, suc@etnow.tv. Now, Zerodha co-founder Nikhil Kamath caused quite a stir on social media when he put out a tweet raising a very pertinent question that if startups are cutting back heavily on their marketing spends, and you've seen the crypto route, where is it going to leave content creators? What is it going to be the impact on the creator economy? Will we see the first winter for influencers? And that's a conversation we're going to take forward with Nikhil Kamath, who's now with us right here on the show. Also with him is Rachana Ranade. You've all seen her well. She is an influencer. She's made quite a name for herself when it comes to finance, being an influencer. We're also being joined by Sriram Reddy Vanga, the co-founder of Confluence, in which, incidentally, Nikhil also has a stake. Thank you so much for joining us all over here. Nikhil, I'll come to you first. Starting off on a lighter note, what made you think of this? You're quite an influencer on Instagram and Twitter. You were losing some of your touch, some of your influence?
No, I think, Nayantara, I'm also friends with a lot of the influencers. And in conversation, when I've caught up with them in the last month or two, a lot of them were telling me everything has changed and the amount of money that brands are passing on has gone down significantly. Be it the crypto route, the startup marketing budget drying up, all of these are factors which have kind of played into it. So in many ways, it was to feed my own curiosity. I was wondering if this is only subject to the influencers who are my friends, or is this happening across the board? Is it happening in fintech? Is it happening in beauty advertising? Is it happening in edtech? So more out of curiosity than anything else. Like I'm no expert at what influencers are doing. I think Shri through Confluence is probably a better judge of that. But my post was just trying to figure out more information kind of thing.
Okay, you were trying to figure out the more information. So let's go across to the influencer that we have with us here on the panel. Rachana, thanks so much for giving us time today. Is it true for you as well? Are you seeing brands that may want to pay less for your work? Is it fewer paid promotions? I was chatting recently with Neha Nagar. She's also an influencer when it comes to the finance world, and she was saying brands now want to pay 30 to 40% less, and the number of promotions have also fallen.
Yeah. So for me, touchwood, as of now, I have not yet felt the heat of that because I have a specific way of going ahead with a various number of brands. So for example, I do 2 videos every week. So in a month, I have roughly around 8 videos to be put up on YouTube. So as a thumb rule, I have paid promotions for maximum 3 or 4 videos in a month. So the slots that I have for paid promotions itself is pretty much limited to 3 to 4. And I can say that my August calendar is also full as on date. So, but September is not full as of now. Earlier, it used to be like 2-3 months ahead, my calendar used to get blocked. So right now, only 1 month calendar is blocked. So yeah, that sense I can say kind of heat is what I can say.
Okay, so you are not seeing a winter as yet. That would be too early to call it. The onset is not here, but there seem to be signs of a slowdown, which you personally are also seeing. Sriram, if I can come to you, you're running this agency, you're working with influencers, you're working with brands, you really have an idea of the kind of budgets that might exist. My logic is very simple. If the world's largest sporting extravaganza, IPL, you're already hearing from a PTM to an Unacademy saying they're not going to be associated any longer with IPL. So, it's logical, it's an educated guess. If they're not going to be with IPL, many of these unicorns, decacorns, will not want to, will want to cut back budgets when it comes to influencers and the digital world.
Right, Nandara. So what you said is absolutely right. I mean, see, one thing for sure is that the days of excess are over, right? When there was a lot of liquidity, the focus, across the value chain, starting from the VCs to the entrepreneurs or the CEOs who are running, everywhere was pretty much like, look, there is money and money is being received at very, very rich valuations. So it has to be growth at any cost. So that was the mindset. So now with what is happening in the larger economy globally, that mindset has completely changed, and everybody is now, valuations have taken a beating. The amount of fundraise that brands are able to raise has taken a beating. So when this is happening, two things are but natural, right? So one is basically that how do you rationalize this? So the growth that you are experiencing, is it sustainable? Is there some ROI to what you're spending? So that's the first question. And when you cut back, the first port of call is always to cut on the marketing budgets, because that's the easiest thing to cut. I mean, any other cuts would take time, especially if it comes to manpower costs or any other sort of costs. So that's the context. But having said that, when it comes to the creator economy, there are certain sectors where there is high demand and there is certain sectors which are low demand. Okay. So now what do I mean when I say that? So if you look at categories of fashion, food, beauty, there is a lot of supply, plenty of creators. And when you look at certain categories, especially finance, luxury, auto, or education, there are very few influencers. So today, the problem for us is that we actually have more money to spend than the influencers which we have for finance, especially finance, right? So it's a question of supply and demand. That is the second context of it. So in this low supply, high demand spaces, we have not seen any of the prices come down, neither have we seen any of the spends come down. But in some of the other categories like fashion, we are actually seeing that brands are actually expecting to pay a lot less. And more importantly, the focus is based on performance. So earlier, if you had an X number of followers, you would price your post at, let's say, Y. But today brands are saying that what is the ROI that I'm getting for it? And it's moving more towards a performance-based payment mechanism.
Okay, performance-based mechanism is moving towards. I'm going to come back to you to try and understand what that's happening. But since you brought up this point of demand and supply, yes, I take it. Everybody who's traveling wants to be an influencer. I mean, I am just so happy I'm not in college or just about after college. I may have had a complex about myself, because every young person seems to want to be an influencer. It seems to be the career of their choice. But I'll stick with finance, and with that I'll come to you, Nikhil. Of late, we've also seen our influencers facing the flack for maybe not disclosing as much as they should have, that they're doing paid promotions. You can look at the recent example of Vault. We saw literally the who's who from the influencer community that was being dragged on, saying, hey, you promoted Vault and Vault has failed and customers' money is no longer safe. I'm talking about the crypto exchange platform, which has failed. Did that not take a beating, according, as far as sentiment goes, as far as credibility goes? What do you think, Nikhil?
Yeah, so in many ways, I feel the ecosystem for influencers kind of came about because people lost trust in traditional actors, cricketers, all of that. People felt a connection with the influencer because that relationship was a lot more private. I think that trend is not changing. I think the disbursement of news and people following different people will become more fragmented with time, wherein the entire country does not follow one Virat Kohli, for example, but they follow like 100 derivatives of that, people that they can truly connect with. Newspapers, TV media, sorry for saying this, Nayantara, things which were traditionally the biggest avenues for marketing, I think will lose a certain amount of business to micro influencers and people in communities where there is a direct connection. That being said, when people are benefiting from this direct connection, when these influencers are gaining so much from that one-on-one connection they have in a certain way, I think the onus is on the influencer to be a lot more responsible about the kind of information they put out there. It cannot be that, whoever pace the most gets promoted by a particular influencer. I think people have to be a lot more responsible, research into what they're promoting, and only then do it. Also, since this is in that very early stages of infancy in a way, I think things will streamline with time. We've only had influencers for a couple of years now. Now we have people like Shri, who has Cofluence, which is like a platform which connects brands and influencers, and it kind of brings a lot more systems in place, a lot more discipline in place in the interaction between a brand and an influencer. I think with platforms like that, this industry will mature. And I think the long-term trend for this industry, in my personal view, is very bullish. I think a lot of the marketing money going into newspaper, TV, IPL today will get taken away from this market. But on the other side, I think the influencers have to be a lot more responsible and truly kind of like believe in the brands that they promote.
So with that, let's come to you, Rachana. Like, how should finfluencers, as you're all called, stay true to what you're supposed to do, which is to disseminate information, to earn the trust of your viewers who keep coming back to you in their endeavor to grow their money, and at the same time, you folks also have to make a living. So you're getting paid by brands and things like that. How to find that balance, and because that's going to be very, very important as well. Like Nikhil pointed out, the traditional people who were occupying this space had to vacate for all of you because, in a sense, of a trust deficit that had come in.
True. So I think striking this balance is itself a very big task. If we are doing a paid promotion, unfortunately, still the Indian audience is not that much mature to understand that even if I'm doing a paid promotion, it does not mean that I've sold myself to the brand. And they have to understand this, that if I'm talking about any brand for that matter, I have done that due diligence. So being a chartered accountant, we have studied something known as professional ethics. I do follow the same thing which I learned in my CA days, in my current career as well. So we were taught that ideally, being a chartered accountant, being an auditor, I have to do due diligence. I have to ensure that I have good amount of information about the brand, and then only whatever I'm expressing about the brand, that is being done in a true and fair manner, in an unbiased manner. So I feel that our Indian audiences will also become mature over a period of time, because sometimes it does happen that if I'm doing a paid promotion, then there will be a lot of audiences who will focus. So assume it's a 20 minutes video, right? And in that there's a 1 minute promotional content. The audiences will be like, hey, Rachana is doing a paid promotion, SAA. But they have to understand that the 90 minutes were hardcore information, and then I'm plugging in a brand. So this will take time, but over the period of time, I believe that even the audiences will understand that we as influencers, if we are trying to put up the best possible content, if we are trying to have the best possible production, post-production, research, all in one package, it needs money. So we also have to take brands. We are disclosing everything on the video itself. Like I remember even before ASCII guidelines, I have been taking off that includes paid promotion thing. But the audiences unfortunately are not yet aware. They'll still keep on asking in the comment section, is this paid? But then they have to just look at the video. The first 5 seconds itself, there's a disclosure that yes, this includes a paid promotion. So it's all about, some period of time that has to pass by, wherein people will also become much more mature to consume this side of content as well.
Advocate here, Rachana. I have worked in print, I have worked in broadcast as well. So my simple question is that even you're seeing the people who you also rely on for your bread and butter going on asking you, and they're saying they're not mature enough, as the first 5 seconds, why don't you just have paid or promotion all through the video on the top right? That's what we do in broadcast.
So for example, right now, the YouTube, what do I call that? YouTube website itself, whenever I upload any video, that has a checkbox which says includes paid promotion, right? So if I click that, YouTube itself shows it for first 5 or 6 seconds and it auto vanishes from there. So we don't have a choice in the YouTube platform to keep it.
No, I meant you could insert a graphics. I mean, you could insert a graphic pointer. I meant you could insert a graphic pointer on the video that you're shooting and that you're uploading. which on the top right could have promotion. It's just an idea out there. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I take that. I take that.
And I wanted to ask you one more question, Rachana, which is influencers are now being told there'll be a 10% TDS if a company gives a product and they talk about it, and if they keep it, they have to pay a TDS, right? That's the new rule for influencers. I wanted to ask you that, does this exist at all for financial influencers? Because, I mean, would you be given stock options?
So
would
for
you be
example,
given,
if
you
I
know,
want
how
to
does it
do
work? Does it work at all for financial?
No. So as on date, I have not received any such free perk from any of the brand that I promoted till date. I wish that if I were to promote Zerodha, and if they want to give me shares, I would love that. But they don't know that. But yeah, I mean that doesn't happen in the influencer economy as of now, is what I believe.
Nikhil?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money some of the social media influencers are making today, especially like Rachana, it might soon the equation might reverse, and we might need stuff from them than them needing stuff from us. It's incredible how well so many of them are doing. I know some really young guys in Bangalore who are like 21, 22 with millions of people following them. Like, imagine like a kid in first year BCom or second year BCom, his life has totally turned around, like it's gone from A to Z instantly. So this power of reach is incredible. It's like how Spider-Man's dad used to say, right? With great power comes great responsibility. I think we are reaching the latter part of that conversation today, but with time, I'm sure the industry will mature, and there will be rules at play. There will be norms which will not, at some level, you have to be accountable for a brand that you market. The question is how that accountability comes into place. But I guess with time that will happen.
Right. So we are waiting, of course, for the maturity. Now there are stats out there which say that marketing spends for influencers in 2022 by brands could be as much as 1,300 crore rupees. And with that, Sriram, I'd like to come to you because the fight will be on from every influencer for the last cent, literally. Rachana's lucky, who has still not seen the onset of winter. There are other influencers who are talking about it. So as that fight is on, for everybody who's tuning in, because this is what you do for a living, what's your advice to influencers to stay true? At one level, you do still have a lot of cynical people. Picking up an example from what Nikhil was saying, would a 40, 50-year-old want financial advice from a 22-year-old? They'll probably be thinking you've not even seen the world.
So, I mean, to answer your question, see, there are three important aspects that influencers need to understand, right? See, one is the relevance. So when you're actually doing a sponsored ad, what is the relevance of that brand to your audience and yourself, and vice versa, right? That's a very, very important factor to establish the credibility and the relevance. The second thing basically is responsibility, right? So, I think Rachana made a very, very important point on this. So let's say you're doing a paid campaign for a brand. I mean, why do you endorse it? Apart from the fact that, of course, everybody knows it's a paid campaign, but let's say, for example, you're recommending a restaurant. My question is, why? Have you eaten? You're recommending a beverage. Did you actually drink that beverage, right? So all these things start becoming very, very important. And it also makes a lot of sense when you see certain type of endorsement, very, very good user generated content, because these are actually people who use those products and like those products. The other aspect of it is basically what is the frequency, right? Rachana talked about how it's a 1 minute ad in a kind of a 20-minute thing. So similarly, if you're doing paid posts, how many paid posts are doing, how often are you kind of doing it? That's a very, very important factor. And the third most important thing basically, compliance, right? Are you following the ASCII guidelines, right? And are you trying to do any surrogate advertisement for any industry, which has certain restrictions, or is the business legal in the first place? So these become very, very important. And the last aspect we talked about earlier is about performance, right? So we talked about the days of the excess in which people just said, okay, you have 1 million followers and paying you this amount per post. But today, the whole question is the brand that you have endorsed and they have paid you. what is it that they have received in return for it? How much of engagement did they receive? Sales, clicks. So these become very, very important factors. And if this is missing, your everything basically boils down to you being a billboard for hire.
Okay, that's solid advice that is coming in for all of you that want to be an influencer. Rachana, before we wind down, can I ask you this question? Because it's only natural. Everyone, everybody is at the end of the day dispensable, whatever they do, right? There's always somebody new that's going to come in and take a space. How do you keep inventing yourself, making sure that your followers follow you, not somebody else, or take you more seriously versus the others? How do you do it?
I think I've been reinventing myself since day one. I mean, even before I became a so-called influencer. So after becoming a chartered accountant, I used to teach CA students, which used to be like a 3-hour lecture. From that, I reinvented myself when I started teaching MBA finance students, wherein the lectures were like 1 hour long. Then I reinvented myself, wherein I started making YouTube videos, which are like 15 to 20 minutes long. And now I'm again trying to reinvent myself, wherein I'm going to make content which is like a 1-minute short or a 1-minute reel. So the idea is the same, but it is about talking for 3 straight hours or 1 hour or 15 to 20 minutes or just 1 minute. The attention span which I need from my viewers is the biggest challenge. And I just try my best. We do have brainstorming sessions in our office as well, as to, because I have all 20s kids in my office. I'm the oldest one in my office. So they have a lot of ideas as to what's happening on Insta, what is being on the trending and all that. So I get all these ideas, nice ideas from my team members, and just try to reinvent myself every single time.
Nikhil, what would you look for in a finfluencer?
Well, I think people are evolving so quickly now. Up until very recently, I would go into a room and I would be the youngest person in the room, and people would think I'm intelligent based on my age. It's inversely proportional today. The older you are, the less relevant you're becoming very quickly. So what I'm hoping is I can learn something from these young, new influencers who are coming on board. The one thing I would bet on is if something, some kind of innovation comes into the market tomorrow, something drastic were to change, the odds of it coming from one of these really young people is higher than it coming from someone like me or even older. So I guess to learn from them, because I'm very impressed with very many influencers. They might be, they might have a certain amount of knowledge, their level of information about finance might vary, but the manner in which they present it is incredible. And I think at the end of the day, communication is so relevant to every industry that we work in. And that's very impressive.
Okay, so with that, we let all three of you go. Thank you so much for joining us here. We wanted to discuss influencers, if there is a winter, what's going to be the impact of the creator economy, and more than that as well, how all of you stay relevant as well. Many thanks.